The morning started with a tremble that didn't belong to the cold, a tremble that came from something breaking quietly inside me. I remember staring at my phone screen, my breath caught somewhere between my ribs and my throat, as I read the notification again and again, unable to believe it was real. You matched with Marina, 42. My thumb was still numb from the swipe I didn't mean to make. And before I could process the disaster, the message appeared. I want to see you tomorrow. Everything inside me fell apart. It wasn't just a match gone wrong, it was the sinking realization that the woman in that picture, with her calm eyes and confident smile, was my girlfriend's mother. And she wanted to meet. Viewers of Ripple of Love, if you believe that life sometimes brings us unexpected crossroads to teach us hope, compassion, and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It helps our small stories reach hearts that need healing. I wanted to throw the phone away, but all I did was stare, frozen in the dusty sunlight leaking into my room through half-closed blinds. It was too early for my thoughts to make sense, too early to understand how a small mistake had pushed me into a storm I never meant to enter. My name is Ryan, a 23-year-old trying to hold life together with nothing but the thin threads of part-time work, unfinished dreams, and a love that felt fragile in my hands. My girlfriend, Isla, had been my only anchor in a world that constantly shifted beneath my feet. We had met in college, two exhausted souls trying to survive, and somehow that survival made us fall into each other's lives gently, naturally. But her mother, Marina, she was different. I had seen her only twice before, from a distance. She carried herself with a quiet strength, always dressed in warm tones that made her presence feel grounded. Her hair usually tied in a neat bun, her eyes a soft yet piercing brown, her posture confident as if she had weathered storms I couldn't imagine. I never knew her beyond polite greetings, but Isla always said her mother was complicated, closed off, and battling things she never shared. Now she wanted to meet me. Alone. After matching with me. And I didn't know why. I spent the entire morning pacing my small, uneven apartment floor, replaying every possible consequence. Isla would break if she found out. She would think I betrayed her. She would think her mother, who already carried too many heavy secrets, was trying to ruin what little peace they had. I told myself I wouldn't go. I told myself no good could come from it. But Marina's message kept echoing in my mind. I want to see you. Not, why did you match with me? Not, let's talk about this misunderstanding. Just, see you. It felt less like a confrontation and more like a plea. The next afternoon, the world looked too bright for the chaos inside me. I walked toward a small countryside cabin cafe she had sent a location for, the place surrounded by tall trees and a wooden porch that creaked in the soft breeze. The sun hung above the greenery, warm and heavy, casting faint shadows over the earth. As I approached, my heart beat with the panic of someone heading toward a truth he never asked for. And then I saw her. Marina stood on the wooden deck, dressed in a mustard yellow top and a black skirt, her hair pulled back in that familiar tidy bun. She looked almost exactly like the picture, but softer, more real, more tired than the photo had shown. The sunlight touched her lightly, catching the quiet sadness in her eyes. She smiled as soon as she saw me, but it wasn't a greeting smile, it was the kind of smile someone wears when they're holding back a storm. I stopped a few steps away, my breath unsteady. She motioned me forward with a gentleness I didn't expect, her posture relaxed yet fragile. And though everything inside me wanted to turn around, something in her expression rooted me to the ground. Something unspoken. She walked closer, her eyes scanning my face, not with judgment, but with recognition, like she already expected the person she found. I needed answers. But the moment she looked at me, I understood that this meeting wasn't about her discovering me by accident. It wasn't about a match. It wasn't about betrayal. It was something deeper, older, and far more painful. The air felt thicker around us, wrapped in a silence that held years within it. She stepped back slightly, as if unsure how much of herself to reveal. Her eyes trembled, not with shock or embarrassment, but with an emotion that made the world around us feel still. There was a weight she carried, one heavy enough that I felt it from where I stood. And in that moment, I knew, this wasn't about me. This was about something she needed to tell someone, anyone, before she broke. She asked me to sit with her on the wooden bench near the railing. The daytime breeze brushed through the trees, leaves swaying like silent witnesses. She held her hands together in her lap, twisting her fingers as if she didn't know where to begin. Her shoulders stiffened, then slowly dropped, like she had been holding her breath for too long. Everything she shared afterward didn't come as a conversation, it came as a slow unraveling of someone who had lived through more storms than she could admit. She told me she never meant to be on that app. Her sister had created the profile for her, hoping she would finally consider rebuilding her life. Marina had lost her husband years ago, lost him in a way that stole not just her partner but her sense of direction. The grief never softened, only settled beneath her skin. She lived her life for Isla, closing off every part of herself that needed healing. But last week, she found a letter from her late husband in an old drawer, a letter he wrote for her in his final months without her knowing. A letter telling her to live again when he was gone. She didn't know how. She didn't believe she deserved to. So she allowed her sister to upload her photo, to create a profile she never used. She hadn't even opened the app for months. But yesterday morning, she felt something she hadn't felt in years, a loneliness so sharp it pushed her to check it again. And when she did, she saw a match. My photo. She recognized me instantly. She froze. But instead of reacting with anger or suspicion, she felt something else entirely, fear. Not of me, but of the universe forcing her into a moment she could no longer run from. She didn't want to see me as her daughter's boyfriend. She wanted to see me as a witness, someone who could absorb the truth she had been choking on silently. She told me she didn't ask to meet to confront me. She asked because she needed help. Not material help, not emotional rescue, just someone to hear her story so she could breathe again. As she spoke, her voice trembled like a fragile string. She told me that her relationship with Isla was falling apart. Isla believed her mother didn't care, didn't try, didn't open up. But the truth was the opposite. Marina had been desperately trying to protect her daughter from her own collapsing spirit. Every morning, she woke up pretending to be strong, pretending to know how to move forward, pretending she wasn't terrified of being a burden. But she was losing herself quietly. And the match was a mistake that the universe twisted into a moment she couldn't escape, a moment she took as a sign that she needed to let go of the weight she carried, at least once, in front of someone who had something to lose if she didn't find a way to heal. As she spoke, the wind brushed through the trees again, and the warmth of the sunlight softened her rigid posture. I felt her voice settling into the spaces between us, carving into the silence with painful honesty. She wasn't just telling a story, she was confessing her collapse. And weirdly, strangely, painfully, I understood her. Isla once told me her mother was like a locked room, safe on the outside, destroyed on the inside. Now I was sitting inside that room. Marina's voice shook when she said she didn't want this to affect Isla. She didn't want her daughter to think there was anything inappropriate about the meeting. She just didn't know who else to trust with the truth she had buried for years. She didn't want sympathy, she wanted understanding. A bridge. A chance to rebuild. And as the sun warmed the wooden porch and the afternoon breeze sang softly in the leaves, something changed inside me. The panic disappeared. The fear dissolved. I saw her not as Isla's mother, not as a mistaken match, but as a human being who had carried too many battles alone. She looked down, her voice fading like the last notes of a quiet song. She told me she feared losing Isla more than anything, and that the only reason she chose to meet me was because Isla loved me. She wanted to understand what her daughter saw in me. She wanted to know if I could help her reach Isla's heart again. Not by exposing anything. Not by choosing sides. but by helping her learn how to reconnect with her daughter. Her request wasn't dramatic, it was heartbreaking in its simplicity. Help me be a better mother to her. The truth hit me harder than the match ever could. The sun moved slowly across the sky, warming the earth around us. Marina wiped her eyes gently, trying to hide her tears the same way she hid her pain from her daughter. But in that moment, covered in daylight and surrounded by green silence, she finally allowed herself to break. I realized then that the match was not the beginning of a scandal, it was the beginning of healing. A mistake that forced open a door she had locked for too long. And I promised myself silently, right there on that wooden porch, that I would help her. Not because she asked, but because she deserved to breathe again. And Isla deserved to know the truth behind her mother's quiet strength. We talked for hours, about Isla, about life, about grief, about second chances. The daylight shifted around us as the sky softened into late afternoon gold, shadows stretching gently across the wood. The breeze carried the scent of grass and distant earth, calming the space where Marina's emotional storm had finally begun to settle. Before we left, she told me she would delete the app. Not out of shame, but because she now understood what she needed wasn't a stranger on a dating platform, it was peace. A reconnection. A chance to mend her bond with her daughter. I walked away from the cabin with a heaviness softened by clarity. The world around me was bright, but inside me was a stillness I hadn't felt in a long time. I understood now that love wasn't just about two people, it was about the wounds behind them, the shadows they carried, and the families that shaped them. If this story touched you so far, viewers of Ripple of Love, please support it so we can continue sharing meaningful moments that remind us we are not alone. That evening, as the sky dimmed into a gentle dusk, Isla called me. I could hear something lighter in her voice, a softness I hadn't heard in months. She said her mother had reached out to her unexpectedly, asking if they could spend the weekend together. Isla sounded surprised, almost hopeful, as if a door she thought was permanently closed had suddenly opened again. And in that moment, I realized the ripple had already begun. She didn't need to know about the match. She didn't need to know how her mother broke down in front of me. What she needed was exactly what she got, her mother trying again, reaching out, fighting for her. And Marina, she needed that, too. Please comment below what moment in the story touched you the most. Your thoughts help the story live longer in the hearts of others. In the days that followed, something beautiful unfolded almost quietly. Marina and Isla began spending more time together, morning talks over tea, walks at the park, small messages throughout the day. They were rebuilding not with grand gestures, but with soft efforts, gentle steps, and unspoken understanding. And as their bond strengthened, I felt a strange gratitude for the mistake that brought me into the middle of their healing. Sometimes life pushes us into situations we fear, not to punish us but to reveal something broken that needs light. And standing at the edge of that wooden porch, watching two women I cared about find their way back to each other, I finally understood what healing looked like. It looked like small steps, warm sunlight, trembling honesty, and second chances arriving in unexpected forms. In the end, the mistaken match became a miracle in disguise. A doorway. A moment of truth that allowed a grieving mother to release her silence and a wounded daughter to reclaim her mother's love. And as I walked forward into the unfolding piece of their lives, I felt a quiet message settle into my heart. Some accidents save us. Some mistakes guide us. And some unexpected meetings heal what was broken long before we arrived.